This episode is proudly sponsored by Aluminium Trading. Everything aluminium, always innovation.
Aluminum, Al, is a chemical element that is a light silver-white metal found in many things around us. It's the most common metal on Earth and is used in many products. You won't find pure aluminum in nature because it reacts with other elements, but its compounds are in rocks, plants, and animals. Aluminum makes up about 8% of the Earth's outer crust, which is mostly made of oxygen and silicon. The name aluminum comes from the Latin word alumen, used to describe potash alum, or aluminum potassium sulfate, that referred to a substance used in old times. Resembling silver, lightweight and expensive, aluminum was considered an elite material at first. It was used to make jewelry and art objects like the Tintanic.
As an artist, before any artwork is created, we have to decide on the material that we will be using to create the art with. Is it a pencil sketch? Is it paint on canvas? Is the art made from steel, polystyrene, or wood? Those are the first steps when you envision a work of art like this. When I was a little boy, building these models from cardboard, I always knew that someday simple cardboard would give way to steel or some form of metallic alloy. Screws and tape would be replaced by thousands of aluminium pop rivets. I knew then already that someday it would be a very expensive artwork, not only to create, but in its actual value. I wanted a Titanic model built out of aluminium. It's 1/3 the weight of ordinary steel, but it also costs 2/3 more. The real Titanic was 882.5 feet long, 92.6 feet wide, and nearly 200 feet tall. She was a ship with nearly 2,000-inch thick steel plates held together by 3 million iron and steel rivets. I was looking at a size of 8.7 meters by 1 meter wide by 2 meters tall. That's a lot of ship. I prototyped a lot of Titanic models throughout the years. I built 18 variations of the Titanic, and each one was an improvement on the next. The idea and the concept was developed over a period of 20 years, 2 decades, into what we perceive to be the Titanic today. How big? How small? How wide? How tall? These are the kinds of questions that you have to ask yourself before you can even touch a rivet. My prototypes were always built out of cardboard box and deliberately sunk or broken up once they had outlived their use. If they collected too much dust or started breaking due to age, or they just got in the way by taking up too much room, it was more a case of, I know I can do this better every time.
Practice makes perfect.
In the early days, the Titanic models had no reason to be accurate or decorated professionally to any level of great detail. They were simply built to be destroyed. If I'm being totally honest, my models didn't look anything like the Titanic when they started. They were simply toys. I wanted something that could outlive me and last forever, that would replace those flimsy cardboard hulls. Something like steel or aluminium was definitely the way to go. If you pushed it,
it had to push back.
Weight was a big problem when the Titanic was on the drawing board, because every little milligram of weight would eventually add up and I would have to move it. So the lighter, the better. Unlike the ships of the period, which had steel frames on their sides, it was more important to concentrate on the support structure underneath the Titanic, which would support the weight of her 9 different deck levels and her 4,000 rooms. The sides of the Titanic would be built using flat aluminium sheets, only lightly supported in certain places. I had to construct the ship as solid as possible. Hidden screws on B-deck would connect and support the aluminium hull sides. This would ensure that the entire structure eventually took on a solid appearance. Only A-deck and the boat deck above would be held in place by pure gravity. The Tintanic is an abstract artwork, and she only had to look the part. So the rivets are oversized on purpose, which makes up for the dramatic loss of rivets all over the ship. Again, it was a feature of Tintanic that made her unique from the real thing, and therefore every rivet doesn't have to be accounted for or be historically accurate. The whole point of calling it Tintanic, or Tin for short, was to differentiate, clearly distinguish Tin from all other Titanic models around the world. It also left a lot of room for creative freedom. As an artist, I could give an artistic interpretation as a unique artistic work of art. She had to take on her own personality, her own look and feel, her own identity. She was always envisioned to be a cartoon of the Titanic. I had to redraw the entire ship on large sheets of aluminium on a 1:29, 1:35 scale. Deck heights were worked out on roughly 8 to 10 centimeters, and every porthole, every door, every window that was needed was repositioned and redrawn. I think it took about 6 months just to draw the entire ship. From there, every round porthole, there were roughly 2,000 of them, was drilled out depending on size and position. Everywhere a rivet was going to be, I had to pre-drill holes. Then came the fun part, cutting the entire ship out with a tin snip, painfully by hand, not by machine. And you can only cut about 2 centimeters at a time, and then you better pray that you're cutting dead straight along the ship's lines and shapes. It was blistering work, but it's the price that you pay for creating something by hand versus designing the ship on a computer and having a machine do all the work for you. My hands would cramp up so badly sometimes because of the physical labor and strain that I was putting my artistic instruments under. They were expected to perform the work of machines for nearly a year. The only thing you can do is to down tools and take as many periodical breaks as necessary. I was always busy researching something, or going to go and fetch a sponsored product, or busy emailing and communicating with someone about another element of the ship. This is where aluminium trading came into the picture. Tintanic required a few more strips of additional aluminium to complete her exterior detailing process. Majority of the aluminium was required for the A-deck promenade overhang. The real ship's A-deck had a slight drop over the final height of B-deck, which makes the Titanic model look even wider than she really is. Very steampunk, but then it all had to be painted and any trace of the aluminium would be eliminated. This process in itself took close to a year to accomplish. Additional hull plates were also needed for below the waterline and on the actual superstructure itself, to hide any gaps in between sections of the ship and give it a more solid appearance. It wasn't enough. We still required more rivets. Rivco products stepped up and provided the additional 50,000 pop rivets that we needed for the project, bringing the Titanic official rivet count up to 105,000 real pop rivets used throughout her construction. That is a world record for the most real pop rivets used in a single aluminium Titanic model. I couldn't have done this without these guys at the helm. They all deserve such recognition for their extremely valuable contributions to Titanic. Passion really speaks volumes. My passion for Titanic has always been 882.5 feet long and 12,500 feet deep.